So Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. Now I want to begin with saying a phrase. Nowadays we can hear phrases, we can almost like them anonymously. I want you to think about this. If you saw this come across your social media feed, would you like it? Would you hope it was true, even if you perhaps didn't believe in it wholeheartedly? I'm going to read you the quote. The liberation of the Palestinian people and the Jewish people are intertwined and go hand in hand, and you cannot achieve one without the other. I just want to let it sit. Because there's a word that has repeatedly been used, especially over these last couple of years, that we kind of take for granted. And I imagine you've heard the word liberation used in many ways that you've never heard before. Liberation is not just a word. It's a theology. Gustavo Gutierrez is often credited as the founder of liberation theology. His 1971 book, A Theology of Liberation, laid much of the foundation for the movement. He reinterpreted Christian theology through the lens of the poor and oppressed, emphasizing that theology should be lived out through action aimed at social justice. We see that here in our country with Dr. Martin Luther King as well, and liberation theology being used in the civil rights movement. This idea is actually a part of Judaism. It's baked into our own liberation story, which became the model for all liberation stories. The Exodus from Egypt, Yetziat Mitzrayim. In liberation theology, God is not passive. God hears the cries of the poor and oppressed, and in partnership with God, humanity hears those cries and saves them, or helps them save themselves. This term, liberation, has now become part and parcel of the pro-Palestinian or Free Palestine movement. Some may say it's also part of the anti-Israel movement. But the problem is, we also love that word, liberation. So what does it mean? Now I want to read you some words from the CUAD, which is the coalition of student organizations called the Columbia University Apartheid Divest. That's the organization. In their words, they see Palestine as the vanguard for our collective liberation. They say, we believe in liberation. All systems of oppression are interlinked. The fates of the people of Palestine, Kurdistan, Sudan, Congo, Armenia, Ireland, Puerto Rico, Korea, Guam, Haiti, Hawaii, Kashmir, Cuba, Turtle Island, and other colonized bodies are interconnected. We are committed to creating a multi-generational, intersectional, and accessible space dedicated to fighting for abolition, transnational feminism, anti-capitalism, and decolonization, and also to combating anti-blackness, queerphobia, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism. That's the end of it. But I want to return to that quote from the beginning that I started with. I want to read you the full quote. As a Palestinian student and leader of the CUAD movement, I believe that the liberation of the Palestinian people and the Jewish people are intertwined and go hand in hand, and you cannot achieve one without the other. Our movement is a movement for social justice and freedom and equality for everyone. Who was this said by? It was said by detained student activist Mahmoud Khalil. Let me just say, we can hold two things in our hands and our minds at once. We can hold the idea that this gentleman has rights. They should be honored. They should be followed. But we could still look at his words and study them and learn from them, and perhaps develop our own opinion as to how to answer them. For me, the liberation he spoke of didn't turn out well for the Jewish students in Columbia. Because on the first anniversary of the October 7th attacks, the organization, the CUAD, released the following statement. We support liberation by any means necessary, including armed resistance. In the face of violence from the oppressor, equipped with the most lethal military force on the planet, where you've exhausted all peaceful means of resolution, violence is the only path forward. Again, this was made 1 year on October 7th, 1 year anniversary. And I thought to myself, if that's the liberation you're trying to sell, I'm good. But tell me more. I want to hear more. Are the liberation of the Palestinian people and the Jewish people truly intertwined? And what does that even mean? The stages of Jewish liberation are actually found in the Torah. It's in Exodus 6, 5 through 7. There are 4 stages of freedom that God outlays for us. 1, he prophesies, I will free you from the labors of the Egyptians and deliver you from their bondage. 2, I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and through extraordinary chastisements. 3, I will take you to be my people and I will be your God. 4, and you shall know that I, the Lord, am your God who freed you from the labors of the Egyptians. Sforno, a Italian medieval commentator, he looks at these words and he says, this is what happened in the Torah. 1, there was this immediate cessation of the Israelites performing slave labor. We see that in the Torah. 2, on the day the Israelites would depart from Ramses, when they would cross out the border of the land of Egypt, that happened. 3, I will redeem you. We just read that today. The Egyptians pursuing them and we're going to kill them in the sea, and then God saved them. That was today. But is it over? No. Because there's a 4th stage. I will take you as my people. Sforno says, where does this happen? It happens at Sinai, 49 days later. According to this interpretation, God is foretelling how God will liberate the people at that time. But the 4th step, that involves us. Because as the Midrash teaches, all souls were present at Sinai, past, present, and future. And so we see here a different type of liberation is being shared, it's being taught. We read it in rabbinic literature, the ethics of our fathers. They look at the word when they say that the letters were charut, were engraven on the tablets, the 2 tablets. They said, don't read the word engraven. Read the word cherut, freedom. That freedom is on those tablets. What do they mean by that? The writer Isaiah Berlin, who fled the Russian Revolution in 1921, famously analyzed 2 types of liberty: negative liberty and positive liberty. Negative liberty is defined as freedom from, the freedom from constraint on one's actions, enshrined in concepts as human and civil rights. We hold this in Judaism as well. In Judaism, it's not just the freedom from something we value, but the freedom to do something with it, to move us forward to a different place. Judaism teaches us that boundless freedom with no values, no thought for the future, is not liberation, but slavery in a different form. And we see this in the words that we read at the end of today's reading, the thing we kind of skip over, the postscript. We read this powerful story, the Song at the Sea. It's so powerful that we read it in our morning prayers every day. And Miriam chanted for them, sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and driver God has hurled into the sea. Then Moses caused Israel to set out from the Sea of Reeds. They went on to the wilderness of Shur. They traveled 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. They came to Marah. They could not drink the water there because it was bitter, and that's why the place is called Marah. And the people grumbled, what shall we drink? Then 13 days later, we read, setting out from Elim, the whole Israelite community came to the wilderness of Sin between Elim and Sinai. In the wilderness, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died by the hands of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, when we ate our fill of bread, for you have brought us out into this wilderness to starve this whole congregation to death. It took 15 days from witnessing. Can you imagine seeing a sea split, the impact it would have on you? In 15 days, we're back to kvetching. This is where Berlin's positive freedom comes in. Not just the freedom from oppression, but the freedom to do something better, to break cycles of oppression when you are freed. Because you may be in a situation where you could be the oppressor. That's why we're taught to care for the stranger, for we too were strangers. That's why we're commanded not to hate the Egyptians in our hearts. One of the few legislations of feeling in the Torah. We're now seeing this renaissance of that word, liberation, on campuses, protest movements, especially on social media. It's used with passion and purpose, and often with a sense of moral urgency that cannot be ignored. But here's the challenge. Many who evoke liberation today do so without its destination defined. They know what they're against: oppression, colonialism, inequality, but far fewer can articulate what they're for. What does the world look like after the revolution? What comes after the sea splits? Judaism offers an authentic and proven theology that is complicated and nuanced, as opposed to the binary system of the world made up of oppressors and oppressed. Liberation without revelation is dangerous. It may begin with the righteous cry of the oppressed, but without direction, covenant, or moral grounding, it can quickly devolve into destruction, vengeance, and new forms of oppression. And this is not hypothetical. On the first evening of Pesach, Governor Josh Shapiro, the most arguably high-profile Jew in public office, and his family were attacked when their home was firebombed by a domestic terrorist who actually called the police after the attack and said that he firebombed Governor Shapiro and would have killed him with a hammer that he had if he found him, for what he wants to do to the Palestinian people. He added, "He needs to stop having my friends killed," adding that our people have put through too much by that monster. Governor Josh Shapiro is the governor of the state of Pennsylvania. What is his connection to Israel? I wonder. The phrase "by any means necessary" has allowed anti-Semitism to be rationalized as anti-colonialism, and any means are necessary to stop it. Let's be clear. As I said, we believe in liberation. It is foundational to who we are. The Torah is a story of a God who hears the cry of the oppressed, brings them out with a mighty hand. But God doesn't just liberate, God reveals. God gives law. God commands holiness. We do not stop at the sea. We continue to Sinai. Judaism does not believe in any means necessary because it is an antithesis to the most radical claim Judaism has ever had and ever made. That true freedom is not doing whatever we want whenever we want it, but being bound in sacred obligation to do what is right. This is why we say, Havadim hayinu leFaro b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, but we never say we are free to serve ourselves. We say instead we are servants of the Holy One. Blessed be God. And so I ask to those who say our liberation is tied together while also leading us into danger. My question is, who are you serving? We serve the God who splits the sea and gave us the Torah. The God who says, do not oppress the stranger because you were once strangers. The God who commands both justice and mercy. The God who brought us out of Egypt, not so we could tear the world down, but so that we could build it up. And so we must ask of any liberation movement, Jewish or otherwise, what are you liberating us from? And where do you want to take us? And my blessing to you is that you share our answer with them.